call us to order. According to my clock, which is different than that one, it's 5:04. Call the regular meeting of the Police Commission on Monday, March 13th, to order at 5:04 p.m. And let us start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the next item of our agenda, the approval for the minutes of February 15th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? All right. Then all in favor to approve the Police Commission regular minutes from February 15th, 2023, say aye.
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 I am abstaining because I was not here, but the minutes pass. The next item on our agenda are the reports, starting with me. I wanted to let everyone know I was in West Hartford at Fleet Feet and got a compliment on Clifton from when he and Officer Ball did community outreach for the homeless population in Hartford. They passed out shoes, and it's been months, but they made such an impact that the woman at Fleet Feet was very excited. Oh, you know Clifton. So it was a feel-good time. On Saturday, March 11th, I attended the budget workshop for the Board of Selectmen with the chief and deputy chief. There was a lot of discussion. At this point, they haven't made any decisions about anything, it seems, but they did look at our capital requests, which were the less lethal launchers, the vests, the tasers, and seemed supportive of everything except for the license plate reading cameras. Those were not on the list. As far as our service improvements, the chief was able to share that a rough draft or a draft of the staffing study was sent, and that it does indicate we need 3 more patrol officers as well as some civilians. I think they said 3. So the chief was able to reiterate that we are asking for 3 patrol officers as well as 1 full-time records clerk, an additional hour a day for our current records clerk. But again, nothing was done about that. It was just us reiterating that position.
So is that report in that written form somewhere where we can take a look at?
It's the draft of the draft. I think that they're going to get a actual draft that we will get a copy of. The deputy chief might have more to speak about that.
Not really, other than, you know, like you said, we have a preliminary draft, but hasn't gone to press yet. As far as I think there's still some things that we're kind of reading through, some making sure that everything's accurate and whatnot before it gets out there.
We'll get a final copy. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
The next 2 budget workshop or budget meetings with the Board of Selectmen are tonight after our meeting, and then a follow-up on Wednesday if they need it. I will be attending tonight with the deputy chief, so if they have any questions about our requests, we are there to answer them. And my last note is that I wanted to bring everyone's attention to our meeting next month is on Monday, April 10th. That is during spring break. So I'm not sure who's going to be around, but I just wanted to toss that out there. If we know, in fact, we won't have a quorum, that we should go ahead and bump it. But
Do we get a spring break?
well, I don't know what you get, but these 2, they get spring breaks. I get a spring break.
So I may be in DC at a HBCU tour with my boys. So but if I don't go, then I can probably be here. But I'll let you know by next week.
Okay. And then are you?
Very tentatively, I'm here.
Okay.
But,
I'm here.
Post.
We have softball. Okay. And that concludes my report. I will now turn it over to Deputy Chief Davis.
All right. So later in tonight, we'll be presenting 2 individuals for possible selection to fill 1 patrol officer position, as well as an individual to fill the animal control officer position. We're still working to fill another vacancy, as well as in the police. as well as a dispatch position. We have applications for each, and we're currently processing and working through that process. We're also still experiencing many shift vacancies due to long-term absences and illness, as well as 2 current vacancies. We currently have 5 officers, or 13%, out on extended leave. Approximately 21% of patrol is currently out, or when vacancies are factored in, it's actually approximately 30% of patrol is unavailable. To help adjust for that, we've had to reassign individuals to different shifts. We had to bring back the recently installed detective sergeant position back to patrol on a temporary basis until we can get our manpower back to where it needs to be. Jeremiah Kenny's scheduled to graduate from the police academy on April 5th, and will then enter our field training program, which I know you all know it's about 4.5 months long. So hopefully by the end of around August or beginning of September, we should hopefully have him to be able to help with the manpower as well. We recently restarted our Citizens Police Academy on March 2nd. The sessions run every Thursday night from 6 to 8:30, this is the first session that we've had since March of 2020, when we had to halt sessions due to COVID. We have 13 applicants in the session, and they'll receive an overview on a variety of topics, including the hiring process, police academy life, the FTO program, CLIA accreditation, dispatch, the detective division, SROs, the cadet program, animal control, our specialized regional teams, use of force, records department, as well as a practical skills night. And then we'll conclude the session with a graduation slate for the first week in May. As Sharon Jen and I reported before, that we attended the Board of Selectmen budget hearing workshop on Saturday. We'll be there right after this as well, and probably Wednesday night as well, as what I understand. So, that's it.
All right. The consolidated monthly report, has everyone had a chance to look at it? Any questions, thoughts?
Chief, anything jump out at you here? It looked all kind of standard.
Yeah, no, it's fairly standard.
I noticed we have a lot of overtime, which is
Right.
understandable.
That goes back to our staffing issues
Yeah.
right now.
Okay. That was the only thing that seemed jumped out at me. Anything else about the consolidated monthly? Then,
I have a question.
sorry.
How many officers are out?
So right now, we have 5 officers that are out, but when you factor in, vacancies and everything else, we have the vacancies, we have almost 30%. And we're just talking about patrol, we have 30% of patrol that are out. So
5 on extended leave.
Yeah.
Then we got a handful of
Then you have-
vacancies.
Then you also have, vacations,
Yeah.
regular sick time, so it's not extended, but just, I'll say your everyday sick leave, training, that it definitely puts a strain on our resources right now. So,
Because I'm trying to compare the number of incidents like this year as opposed to last year, number of calls, number of things done.
right.
And it's down some, but not hugely. Are we to expect that we'll drop, say, next month?
It's hard to say, because we'll still, the activity, so the call generated, or the incident generated calls, we're still gonna go to.
Right.
It's more of the self-initiated type activity, that, if that may take a drop slightly, if we're having a shortage of manpower, then it's, that could be somewhat detrimental.
Traffic stops.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Right, but for the most part, like I said, we'll still, somebody calls 911, calls for a service, they're still gonna show up, so, those numbers aren't gonna change much. There was, in looking at the patrol checks from last year to this year,
Right.
that's where the biggest, drop was for this month. And that was just But that's typically just one officer that does a lot of those on midnight shift. He was out for a period of time, so the numbers dropped quite a bit. But, you know, we're still gonna do what we have to do, and we'll still be there to answer every call. So the numbers that are coming in for criminal activity and things like that are not gonna change. It doesn't matter if Officer A goes or Officer B goes.
Well, with the reduced manpower available, I see like things like miles patrolled, we're down a fair amount, which that tracks, right?
It could be, I mean, yeah, it could be certainly, and it could be also be indicative of, you know, the different types of calls that they're going on, you know, the length of some of the investigations that they're doing, and all that kind of plays into, you know, whether or not they're setting up to do traffic details and, you know, kind of stationary for a little while as opposed to just driving around. So maybe we also got new cars. That's an average, you know.
Yeah.
That's going to change as they're getting put into service. That drops the mileage quite a bit. So
You and Nick haven't been out there.
I try and get out as much as I can. But unfortunately, with the budget going on, it's been tough to get out there recently.
Thank you.
Moving on to the preliminary monthly activity report. Any questions about that one? Was there anything unusual? More catalytic converters,
Yeah,
more
more catalytic
cars?
converters, a couple more cars, but nothing really unusual other than
How about the mailbox thefts?
that. They're still working on those right now. Those are still under investigation. I haven't heard of any more that have come through, but I don't have a status update as far as the previous cases. I know they're still working on those, but I know right now, I don't know that they've had anything put out in regards to that.
And then our last documentation, the year-to-date budgets. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
I'd like to see something added to it if possible. You know, depending on when the report is run, like this was the 3rd and 10th of March. If maybe you could just put what percent of the fiscal year is on
Right, I
that
got
date,
you.
so that we can compare, you know, the budget
Yes.
with the time period.
I did the math.
Oh, you
So,
are clever.
For, assuming that my fractions are right, because we're gonna assume that, it's 66% of the fiscal year has gone through. So like our overtime is at 84%, so that'd be higher than our time. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
That came out very awkwardly, but I'm pretty sure we're at 66% of the fiscal year.
That's through the 10th of March as opposed to just the months, number of months.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, though, I did not go to, I'm not a statistician, so I will openly acknowledge that that might be off. but-
Well, it'd be good if you could add that.
Do that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, thoughts? All right. Then, moving on to our new business this evening, I will again turn it over to the deputy chief.
Okay. Thank you. Any preference which one you want to do first?
Whatever you're comfortable
Yes.
with.
Okay. I'm very excited to present both these individuals to you. I think we're going to hit home runs with both of them. First, I'm going to introduce you to Deborah Clark. I'm pleased to recommend Deborah Clark for the position of Animal Control Officer. Deborah has over 10 years of animal control experience, as well as 23 years of dog training experience. She currently serves as a certified part-time animal control officer for both the towns of Newington and Weathersfield. She holds both a level 1 and level 2 ACO certification. Deborah attended Tungus Community College as well as Southern Connecticut State University. While there, she became a certified EMT before also earning a certificate as a nursing assistant. After spending several years in the private sector performing a variety of positions, Deborah started her own dog training business, which she operated for 11 years. Through these positions, she gained valuable experience with a customer-focused approach, as well as demonstrating an ability to excel independently and working independently and being self-driven. Over the years, Deborah has acquired a myriad of professional experiences and certifications, including becoming certified as a volunteer firefighter for the town of Farmington, as well as a canine handler for the town of Farmington Search and Rescue Team. Deborah has displayed a consistent passion for her job and working with animals, which is also an adjective that was used by her current supervisors to best describe her. In her position as ACO, Deborah has demonstrated desire and ability to engage in various community-based programs, which would be following our long-established history of providing exceptional service in partnership with our community. It became apparent throughout the hiring process that Deborah possesses and exemplifies the qualities that we look for in our police department personnel: honesty, integrity, compassion, and a strong community-based approach to providing services. I'd like to introduce you to Deborah Clark.
Welcome. Thank you for having me here. I normally just start at one end and let us work our way through.
You can try that in.
All right, so Tanisha, you get first dibs tonight.
I want my seat back. Okay, so what has been the most challenging ACO call that you've been on?
Most challenging, yes, we had 2 aggressive pit bulls fighting, 2 young kids in the family while they were home with a babysitter. They all got involved. It was a very intense situation because the kids had to go by ambulance. The dogs were separated. One was loose in the backyard, one was loose in the house. And the kids did everything right. They brought a garden hose into the house to spray to break everything up. Of course, now we have everything all wet. I got called from Weathersfield Stat. That was the first time I ever got a call to move. I arrived and I saw every personnel from the Newington Police Department surrounding this backyard, so I knew it was a very, very intense situation. So when I arrived, I was met by the police chief and my supervisor to explain the situation. The first thing I asked for was, where are the dogs and where are the children? Because I did not know that the children had left at the time. So I wanted to make sure if I had to go into the house, I was prepared to go in and get that child out if there was a child in there. So the children, all humans, were off to the hospitals, so I went to the backyard and it was like parting the sea. There was the dogs. So capturing the dogs, I got a bite suit from the canine officer. And I walked in the backyard and I actually calmed the dog down where I was able to noose it, use the noose as a leash, get the dog in custody so no harm was done. Then I went into the house with 2 other officers. They had their shields, the guards. I mean, this was like almost a whole SWAT event. It really was. It was dangerous. And we found the dog, but now we're dealing with water, slippage, everything. I took about at least 30 minutes to calm that dog down. I started issuing commands. The dog was starting to comply. I noosed it, walked out on a leash, put the dog in custody. So that was the most intense situation I have ever had to deal with. These 2 pit bulls. I got in a fight and involved the kids. How it started, I don't know.
And the outcome after with the dogs?
Apparently, after pulling the history, when I did pick up both dogs and I brought them to the vet because there was already staples in the dogs, so there was always a prior fight. And come to find out, one of the dogs had cancer. So I don't know if there is an interspecies issue. And it just so happens the dogs got in a fight, the kids were there, and that's how the kids got involved to try to break them up. They were pets. They were family pets. So that's how that all. One was euthanized. The cancer dog was euthanized, medically euthanized, and the other went to a family member up in Vermont.
Wow. So very exciting day. Not to say the least, right?
Yeah, but it's part of the job.
Okay, and then the next question on the flip side of that, what was the most rewarding call that you've ever been on?
The most rewarding, well, the cute one, picked up a little dachshund that was roaming around the highway. Someone must have dumped it. Lo and behold, it was pregnant in our custody. So I was able to find a rescue to whelp the litter, the 2 puppies that came out of it. I met a young girl who was very interested, came up to me in the community and said that she wanted a dog and if I had one. And I says, well, bring your mom over. And she goes, oh, I'm gonna go home. She ran home and she came back with mom. And I says, we're looking for a small dog. And I says, how about a dachshund? And she goes, oh, that'd be perfect. I says, well, we have one. We have 2 that just landed. He says, I'll put your name in, put the name in. She filled out her application with me, and sure enough, I called in a few favors of the rescue, and I says, just give the dog to her. And that was the story for that one, so that was a good one.
Okay.
All right. I am a dog lover, but I am not going to talk about dogs because we're Simsbury.
Yes.
And we often get a lot of calls because there are bears. And in my tenure here, I've learned that we've had to sometimes euthanize the bears as well. So my question is more outside of dogs, the wildlife. What is your experience with bears and coyotes and wild turkeys and deer?
I don't have a vast experience. I do live in Farmington, so we do have the black bear issue. I have replaced my fence a couple times. I leave notes. I try to get them to use the gates, but they don't. It's expensive. Coyotes, we have them, believe it or not, in Weathersfield. So it's almost a daily call, especially when there's mating season, which we were just in, and of course towards the end of the year. We pretty much babysit them, and if we do have to, if they're sick, where they won't go and navigate, we do euthanize them. But we usually call DEP first just to say, hey, biologist, what's going on? Is there something we need to know? And they say, no, if it looks sick, based on what you know, distemper, mange, we euthanize right there. We have bobcat, believe it or not.
Well, we do too, apparently.
Yeah, you guys do have bobcat,
We
yeah.
sure do.
So I see wildlife comes in waves. Turtles, snapping turtles, the first 2 weeks of June. So I would like to be more versed in that, and that's what I was hoping I could do coming here. I do know, like I said, coming from Farmington, we have the same issues that you have here. I'd love to extend my knowledge, and I do hope I can do that. So.
And do you do any public outreach? I know back in the day, our animal control officer would have a coyote class for, don't feed the birds to the bears. There was a lot of public outreach that kind of, without an ACO, we haven't been able to do. What are your thoughts about public outreach?
100%. I think that's more of a proactive way of doing animal control. Just for the reverse where I'm coming from, I'm becoming more reactive because the call volume has almost doubled. So I'm losing that, so I feel like I'm being reactive. I believe, in my world, the more proactive and community education you do through the library system, the school system, not only just wildlife, but how to meet and greet dogs, I think is extremely important just to prevent dog bites, right? So the more education you do with the younger kids, the less dog bites you more, because the kids get bit. So I do, hopefully, I can expand that and actually do it. I have written a few programs that I did for the post office folks. I don't know about Newington, but our mailmen are always getting bit over there. So I developed a program, and every quarter I would go into the postal service before 7:00 a.m. I would go and educate them. I even give them my personal cell phone number just to say, if there's a problem, call me so I can get out there. So I hope to do that, and I'd love to get into libraries. I do it for Farmington, actually for my search and rescue, Hug a Tree, where we can educate the kids that don't be afraid to go out. But if you do get lost, here's what you do. So again, I think that we can flip in the wildlife there as well. And of course with the library, we did the coyote, the black bear, skunks aren't that bad, possums are awesome kind of thing. And to appreciate the wildlife versus being afraid of the wildlife. And I do hope to do that, because I do believe that's a proactive approach to keep the call volume down.
All right, Travis?
Deborah, thanks, first off, just for your service to the state, for the things that you're doing, whether it's the ACO or the volunteer firefighter, the EMT business, like, fantastic. The second point I have is, you've got the makings of a child book here with your possums are awesome, if that title's not already taken, so I'll let you take first dibs, go for it. I do want to talk to you about your time management and just get your intentions here. Like, in the past, Simsbury has seen an animal control officer that had a wonderful dog background and then ended up leaving the job to go back to dogs. And so I just want to see, if you pick up the assignment here, are you going to be a full-time ACO for us, and do you kind of, put on the back burner other jobs or things that you have going on? Over to you for a comment.
I plan to be wheelchaired out of here. I don't plan on going anywhere at all from a full-time perspective.
Yeah.
But from a time management, I have, I guess, my multitasking skills. I do plan on everything around my job. So I do volunteer with search and rescue. Obviously, I wouldn't be available to work here. So I plan to go into retirement through here.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have.
So your other part-time ACO work would stop, and then you'd be full-time here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And do you do the search and rescue for the state, or is that just out of curiosity?
That's volunteer.
Yeah.
I
Do you do that with dogs, or with your dogs, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have human remains detection dogs.
Yeah.
And I do that work in Farmington, because Farmington is where I live. So that, I guess, asset was put into the fire department years ago, and it was through dispatch and finding some of the nuances of being on the fire department and my role there kind of conflicted with getting the dogs to where they needed to be. So they moved me into the police department under CERT. So it's strictly volunteer. And my latest volunteer was working as a resource for the FBI. But that would be used by vacation time or on weekends.
Sure.
But, yeah, so I have human remains certified working dogs. I certify through Napawata, which is, a lot of the state canine officers I'm part of that association.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
Why Simsbury, Deborah?
Why?
Yeah.
Why Simsbury? Well, I mentioned it before. It seems like the call, I feel an ACO position should be well-rounded. More well-rounded if community outreach, education, and of course calls for service. And where I am currently, I'm finding to be reactive. I just don't like it to be in that position because you can never get in front of it. Coming to Simsbury, I have a passion for teaching people on how to be safe with animals. It doesn't matter, cats, dogs, wildlife. I really enjoy that. And I think that's my result of all my community work. So I feel I can be that person for Simsbury.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? All right. Last time we found it more convenient to then talk to our next candidate and then discuss, so if that works for everybody.
I'm also extremely pleased to recommend Christopher Sheehan for the position of patrol officer. Christopher is currently a certified police officer with the Town of Cheshire Police Department, where he's worked for the past 3 years. He brings with him an exceptionally diverse and unique background that would be a tremendous asset in continuing the high level of service that our department expects and provides to the community. Christopher graduated from Woken High School, where he was class president, captain of the football team, powerlifting team, as well as both the indoor and outdoor track teams. Following high school, Christopher went on to Williams College in Williamstown, Massachusetts, where he majored in Asian Studies. While at Williams, he supplemented his education with continuing his athletic extracurricular activity by playing 2 years of football, 1 year of rugby, and 1 year of indoor track. Besides his athletic activity, Christopher also spent a semester abroad with the School of International Training in Kunming, China. While there, Christopher interned as a program assistant at the China Institute Summer Study in Beijing, China, where amongst other duties, he acted as a cultural mediator between Chinese instructors and American students. Following his graduation from Williams College in 2013, Christopher went on to the Ohio State University to pursue an advanced degree. While there, he was awarded several scholarships, including the Taiwan Ministry of Education Enrichment Scholarship, as well as one from the Chinese Scholarship Council. He additionally served as a residential advisor at the Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, assessing and responding to students' academic, health, and social needs, both inside and outside dormitory during non-class hours. He went on to graduate in 2017, earning a Master's of Arts degree in East Asian Languages and Literatures with a GPA of 3.93. After college, Christopher worked at Cheshire Academy as an admission associate for international recruiting, where he managed student applications, conducted interviews, and tours with students and parents in both English and Chinese, because he's fluent in Mandarin Chinese, as well as coordinating and participating in annual admissions trips to China with the school leaders to meet with parents, alumni, and potential students. Christopher was hired by the Cheshire Police Department in June of 2019. By all accounts, he's been an outstanding employee. He's been described as a hard worker, an informal leader, and even though he's only been there for a few years, while working at Cheshire PD, he has continued his dedication to mentoring and assisting youth by leading the Cheshire Police Explorer Post. While going through the rigorous selection process for our department, a few things stood out about Chris. Obviously, his unique and diverse education and background were extraordinary. However, it was also extremely evident that he truly understands and encompasses the community policing philosophy that we search for in new police candidates. Also evident throughout the various interviews and interactions with our personnel were his superb communication skills. While there are a multitude of other reasons why he would be an outstanding fit for our department and community, one of the most impressive characteristics and traits that stood out to me was his personality. He was a very genuine, charismatic, and approachable personality who would be a tremendous asset to our department and our community. I'd like to introduce you to Christopher Sheehan.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hi, Tanisha.
Starting on that.
Commissioner Grant is up again.
Well, your resume that you just pretty much gave to us is very impressive. I'm curious, what made you start to get involved in wanting to learn more about the Chinese language culture?
When I was in college, it was actually the only part that I really enjoyed studying. So I was having a lot of trouble learning, and so what I did was I kind of made a choice between playing football or learning Chinese because I could put more time and effort into the language. So I ended up picking that over football. That's why the 2 years of football in there. It was just I felt it to be a little bit of a difficult academic environment at Williams. So I switched over to pay attention to things that I really wanted to do, and since my parents have always encouraged me to find something I was passionate about, I found that my passion was more related to the language study and the cultural understanding than to a lot of the other things that I was interested in at the time.
Okay. Another question I have is, you were at Cheshire, you'll be at Cheshire for 3 years.
Yes.
Why do you want to switch now?
It's been really good in Cheshire, and it's hard because I live probably a 1/10 of a mile from the police department. A lot of the people I work with are really great, and I get a lot of opportunities also, to use my Chinese there and whatnot. But, I really like the small town atmospheres. I feel like I've seen Simsbury before. My father used to work at Simsbury Bank, actually, so I'd come down to the Fiddler's Green and get a bite at Joe Pizza pretty often. But it's been it's just kind of, I think that Simsbury would suit my policing style and my personality in a lot of ways, and I think would be a good opportunity to change over from Cheshire.
Okay. I think you heard we are short-staffed right now. We have 2 vacancies and we have some officers that are out. So I feel like you'll probably be hitting the ground running pretty hard, even going through our FTO program. And are you concerned about the change in Cheshire versus Simsbury and what's going to be expected of you?
No, I think one of the biggest attractors for me to apply to Simsbury, as being the only place that I applied to as well, was that I feel like Simsbury provides officers with an opportunity to take their time on calls. There's a lot of places where you need to get to the next one, or you need to go somewhere else, and certainly you still operate some sort of time constraints where you want to complete a call efficiently. But the most important part is kind of the interaction that you have. I think on every call, it's always about the interaction. So going into it, I'm not very concerned because I go into everything I do with a very patient attitude. I try to take my time into becoming adjusted per call or per life situation, and I think that at least at my age now, since I'm not starting that much younger, like when I'm a lot younger, I've kind of honed those skills into being adaptive, and I think that'll work for my advantage in moving over.
And then my other question, what do you do for fun? I know this is a stressful job and there's a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
How do you relax and kind of reset so that you can face each day?
Well, I'm big into weightlifting on my own time, but I'm also recently joined the Waterbury Police Pipes and Drums as a bagpiper. So that's been my fun one lately. I really enjoy that, and it's been good because I actually get to use the police department garage to practice. But it's been something that's been a real de-stressor for me, and there's a good mix of guys out there. Some police officers, some not, that just really have a big kind of reverence for the position, and I feel that it makes me more excited to be a police officer, be a part of something like that. That's been one of mine. And then I guess you could say hanging out with a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old has been a little bit of a de-stressor, sometimes not as much. But we got to go to the playground today for a little bit. It got my mind off of all this stuff, and it was good. So I spent time with my family, and my bagpiping and my weightlifting are my 3 main things that I enjoy.
Well, thank you. I'll turn it over to
Okay, let me just see where your loyalties lie here. Is it Williams football or the Ohio State?
Oh,
that
come on, we're not
really
gonna start that. No,
Oh,
sir.
well, actually, it's kind of interesting because, obviously Ohio State and Michigan is a big game, but Williams versus Amherst is the biggest little game in America,
Yeah.
so there's kind of a lot of interest there. I like it's the same thing, it's such a small town atmosphere there, right? Because Williams is only 3,000 students and Ohio State was 80,000. So I really I enjoyed my time at Williams because of how small it was.
Yeah.
And I liked the football guys. I'm a little biased, but I used to go to the games with a kilt on because even after I stopped playing, I still lived with a lot of the football guys. So I'd show up at games with my kilt on and cheer on the team. It was a great environment. You don't get as lost as in that big house at Ohio State. It's pretty huge there.
That's excellent for you. All right, so hey, you've been in the force for several years now. How do you feel you've grown? Like at day one as hey, you're wearing the badge, and 3 years later, you feel like you've self-actualized. Give me some thoughts on.
Well, there's been a lot of confidence building over time. I think that the one thing that in the policing ways of today, there's a lot of concern about liability and what you can say and what you can do, and you got these cameras watching you and all this other stuff. And over time, I've just gotten comfortable in that being my everyday life. Essentially, is that people monitor what you do, they're watching what you do, they have comments back to your department and based on your interactions, and how do you react in that. And I feel like over time I've been able to make it more like a comfortability thing for me, where I like being in the role is second nature to anything. It's like I can feel that way and be as comfortable as being out of uniform as I am in uniform. So over time, it's been a development of that. But there's still things that show up at first. Your first DUI, your first domestic, and you go in there, you're like, oh, I don't know about this, and then they keep throwing things at you. The first risk protective order, and it's been coming to make every new piece that comes out and all this kind of legislation to be much easier to handle, and you handle it with like a greater confidence. I feel in 3 years I've gotten a lot of that confidence up.
Yeah, great. All right, last one, tongue in cheek here. We've got a Memorial Day parade, fife and drums a part of it. Can we get your commitment now?
So I will say that currently I'm like, because I've joined kind of recently, so I'm a student in the band because I need to learn the tunes and sets. But you could always reach out to the Waterbury Pipes and Drums. I'd be glad to throw my weight around there a little bit. I'm a student member, but I think I consider myself to be an enjoyable member that they have in there. So I wouldn't be afraid to throw my name around there a little bit.
Thanks, Christopher.
Of course. There's been some tough questions asked here, but I'm just curious, if you were sitting here and not there, what would you want to know about you that we should know about in order to help us make our decisions?
Oh, I think I would want you to know, or I would want to know if the person who I'm looking at understands the kind of community that they're going into. And every community is different, and you hate to compare these sort of things, but it's not necessarily apples to oranges, right? And I know the kind of work and the kind of attitude that it takes to be successful in a place like Simsbury or Cheshire for that matter. But taking the time on calls, it's a big service-oriented thing, being a police officer, and always providing that kind of like the positive attitude that you need to go on calls. And that's kind of where I believe that I am as a police officer, where the traffic stops that I have end off in a smile and a thank you. It's not something, I realize that I'm not the judge and jury of a community. I'm just somebody who's trying to help mediate situations. And that's what I think is the most important as far as like police work goes.
Sure. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Do you speak other Chinese languages, like Cantonese, or I only know Mandarin. That came out awkwardly. I know of Mandarin and Cantonese, but.
Right, yeah, so when I was I've lived in China for a total of 4 years, and so the normal language is Mandarin, but at the last time that I was over there, I lived in Guangzhou, which is Canton, so the Cantonese area. And they would always ask me, like, do I speak Cantonese? And in China, if you say, like, yeah, I speak that, or something, then they don't really think you can. So I learned how to say, I don't speak Cantonese in Cantonese really well. So when they say that, then they think I actually speak Cantonese, and I'm like, no, I'm just kidding, that's it. That's the only thing. Everything else is a complete farce. I don't know anything other than that. But I took a semester of Cantonese, so I learned, I like that watch, that is a red dress, things like that. But my Mandarin is much better than that.
Well, thank you. Any other questions? All right. In that case, I will let you have them wait in the hallway so we can discuss. On behalf of the Simsbury Police Commission, I would like to extend our congratulations to both of you and offer Deborah Clark the position of Animal Control Officer, and Christopher Sheehan. I even said, is he related to I? And offer Christopher Sheehan the patrol officer position. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Pending your completion of your background check, which I understand is still ongoing. So, thank you, Michael. So, welcome.
Hey.
Woo!
Hey, congratulations.
All right. The button threw me and all of my English fell out. We're moving on to old business. I have one thing very quick. We discussed a plaque or a proclamation for Commissioner Fogarty, and I did a rather deep dive on the internet and found that the language is pretty standard. There's not a lot of variance. So does anyone have any input, or can we just go with the standard congratulations on your
Go
term?
with whatever you think is appropriate.
Okay. All right, and I was able to verify with the town clerk that he started in January of 2019. So we have his term, I have the amount of time he was there. So I will forward that to you, and then you will work your magic. See, I passed that one real quick.
Thank you.
In that case, I have no other old business. Anybody else?
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
All in favor? Oh, you know, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. In that case, I adjourn the regular meeting of Monday, March 13th at 6 o'clock on the dot.